Are you? Are you not blocking my light?
No, because I'm literally right back here and you're here and the light's coming straight through.
Hello, and I've still got a cold. And welcome to episode 4 of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Spoilers ahead. What was it called? The Whole World is Watching.
Something like that, yeah.
Something to do with the world watching. But not Pornhub, obviously. This week was good. There was a lot more of. You say it.
The Dora Milaje?
That's
or
it.
Dora Milaje.
Milaje. They've now got an accented E on the end. Sound more French or something. So there was more of them, and that was awesome. I loved that bit a lot. Also, new Captain America. It was kind of obvious from the start, I think, that they were setting him up to be. He's going to turn out to be a cunt. I think that was clear from his introduction. And then it kind of made you think, but he might be nice. And then, no, out and out, he is just a dick.
But then that's kind of the comics as well. Is that he kind of starts off as this very, again, I just know this mainly from articles and stuff I read, but basically I think he starts as being quite apple pie.
Right.
But basically where Steve kind of stayed apple pie, he kind of goes off in a very different direction.
You see, to me, it's basically like when Danny Minogue used to be on the X Factor, which I didn't really watch, but I'd be in another part of the room while people in my house watched it. And every time she tried to sound all sort of like she knew something about the music business or performing, I would just scream at the television, "You'll never be your sister!" That's how I feel this is like. You'll never be Steve Rogers!
What, Danny Minogue will never be Steve Rogers?
Danny Minogue will never be Steve Rogers.
I mean, that's, accurate.
Yeah, so that was cool. I thought the fight was good. I thought it was very well done. It's quite fast.
What, the Dora Milaje fight?
Yeah.
Because there was quite a lot of fighting in this episode.
There was quite a lot of fighting in this episode. But it's an action series, so there will be, won't there, really?
Yes.
Also,
like the whole, as I think as you pointed out, the fact that, I think it actually did get pointed out in the show as well, but it just kind of, again, foreshadowing the whole fact that, there actually was a super soldier in the room and still got their asses kicked by the Dora Milaje, who are not super soldiers or enhanced in any way, shape or form.
I still like to think of them as the Lionesses, because the Lionesses in Disney are fucking badass. So I think it's a really solid comparison. Apart from the fact that the story is exactly the same. But what was I saying? Can't remember. Beginning of the episode. I'm trying to remember the beginning of the episode. He gives her balls back.
Yes, it was basically that we got to see. We didn't actually get to see the breaking of the conditioning, but we got to see
that it had broken.
Yes.
Yes, I vaguely remember that scene now. And wasn't there something about they were all off to try and find Madonna's funeral?
Yes, that's exactly what they were trying to find.
Well, it sounded like they were saying something Madonna, and so I just assumed it was Madonna.
Madonna.
Yes, Madonna. Is that not just an Italian for Madonna? No, Madonna's Italian for Madonna. What was I thinking? But that was I just thought. And then when you got there, it was a bit like the beginning of Evita. So I thought that's missed opportunity there to have not had like "You Must Love Me" playing in the background.
Not everything is about Evita.
You're all right. So that was and then I thought this episode did quite nicely was something that is very prominent these days is that and to a degree I don't always like it, but I think in this case it's right and it works in the fact that you don't just get a baddie anymore. You never just get Cruella de Vil anymore, do you? They're not just out and out evil because they just are. There's always like, but if you look at it from their side, But I thought this did quite a nice job of kind of leveling out the, her from the Red Hand Gang with the ginger hair.
I want to say Carly.
Carly?
I think it's like Carline or something like that.
Carlu? Anyway, her, you know her. I thought
Carlin Morgenthau.
Yeah. What?
That's what I'm saying is Morgenthau.
Oh, is it? Oh, right.
Yes.
Okay.
Morgan Thau.
Right. Okay.
A weirdly German surname for someone with such a
randomly wandering up and down between just north of Leicester and quite London accent.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's just certain words she's got that are still have not been bred out of her by the Central School of Speech and Drama or wherever she went. Because there's certain words are very Midlands, but for most of the time she's a little bit just north of the river. Yeah, I can't remember what I was saying. You talk
About the funeral and trying to find it. So yeah, I know you were talking about Shades of Grey, essentially, which again I think is something that I think it's actually weirdly it's kind of needed for stuff that's based on comic books.
I mean, I think it works here. It works in this story. I think it works that you don't want Sam and Bucky to necessarily be out and out Superman style black and white good boys.
Interesting choice of phrase.
Yeah, which wasn't intended actually, but do you know what I mean? The fact that they are a bit sort of like not necessarily the government, but might sympathise with the terrorists a little bit,
yes.
Because are they really terrorists or are they trying to get rights and freedom, that kind of thing?
Well, there's that very nice line, and again, it's something that I know I've noticed in terms of real world politics. Okay, and they actually, when you have Caroline, ringing Sam's sister and doing the whole, you're the terrorist or revolutionary, depending on which side of the equation you're on, and there was something very mirrored in that for me, as someone who's grown up during sort of like the tail end of the Troubles in Ireland, where you very much had groups like the IRA, where depending on who you spoke to, they were either terrorists or freedom fighters, and it was all about the language that you use to sort of describe stuff, and there's a lot of that going on here, which again is, I think, quite unusual for a super.
It's nice,
superhero.
It's different, it's unusual.
Thanks, Kat. Thanks. But I definitely sort of enjoy that, because it's weird, because funny you saying that, there was a point when I think it's when Sam and Daniel Bruhl's character Zemo,
Baron Zemo,
yes, his name completely escaped me there for a second. We're having a conversation about the super soldier serum, and again, obviously, that was also nicely mirrored further down the line with a similar conversation that Wilson and Hoskins are having about would you take sort of and the very different reactions that you got. But I literally spent most of the conversation between sort of like Sam and Zemo thinking like hashtag Thanos was right. Because there were elements of that around it, which is that very much, yes, his plan was fucking insane. Yes, he's a genocidal maniac, blah, 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 blah. But
is he genocidal, though? Because he wouldn't have ever wiped out a whole race. That's the point. Only half of one. Only half of all of them. But
you could say he's genocidal towards life.
Not if you leave half of life existing.
But again, it depends how pedantic you want to be in that language.
Well, I thought genocide was like none left, wiped out.
No, I think it's just a massive slaughter.
Oh, is it? Oh, there we are then.
Like, when you look at sort of Saddam Hussein and the genocide of the Kurds, he didn't wipe out the Kurds. There are still
in a fucking good go.
Exactly, but it's still classed as genocide, because again that leads into a whole well beyond the bounds of this thing about the definition of genocide in terms of how it affects the political stage and all that sort of stuff. As I say, that's a different conversation.
So if pesticide gets rid of pests,
oh, here we go.
Does genocide get rid of Jen? All the people called Jen in the world gone, just like that. Saunders, that'd be a shame, wouldn't it? Connolly, can't think of a third. What's the one from Dreamgirls? What's her name? Hudson. You can carry on now.
Oh, it was kind of done.
Oh, all right, fine. There was something else I thought of as well, but it went because I got hung up on genocide.
As you do.
Yeah. as so many do. Oh, I remember. Who didn't see the end coming? That Battlestar was going to die, and that Cap is gonna go nuts was going to happen. It was blindingly obvious. It was massively shadowed. But when it was done, it was still done so well that I was properly clutching my pearls. I was like, oh my God. And I want to say that final image of the shield with the blood at the bottom, it's not from a relevant comic book, but it wasn't like the end of Civil War or when Cap finally died. Wasn't that the pain? It was it was his shield with the blood on it. I want to say that the shield with the blood on it is something iconic Marvel-wise. Paul or Matt will tell us. I would expect. Paul Facebooks me, Matt WhatsApps me. So all of you people watching never get to find out the answer if you come back and read the comments. So Matt, comment on the actual video. As much as
Paul.
Or Paul,
yeah.
As much as we don't normally. I think it's probably. I think because they watch it on Facebook probably, rather than actually watching it on La Chupa View. Excuse me.
But they can still comment on Facebook then, presumably.
Yeah, presumably, because I don't think anybody else watches this apart from through my Facebook. So I don't think anybody on YouTube is... Actually, every once in a while we get a random person. Hey, if you're one of the random people, thanks for coming along. We do appreciate it. But I just thought the ending was all about the drama. And then there it was. The whole world was watching. I'll be really intrigued to see where that goes, because obviously you've got to have an enormous episode next week to leave us on some big fuck moment to go into the final episode with. Well, so where do we think that's going?
I think you also made a very good point as well at the end of the episode about, sort of the new Cap's complete lack of giving a shit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, he was loving it. Yeah, yeah. He was stood there like basking in the glory of I took down the bad guy, when literally everyone around him was going, girl.
I don't even think it was that so much as it was basically it's almost primal. It's like literally he's effectively hacked someone to death by the look of it, just by the state of that fucking shield. And obviously he's surrounded by this ring of horrified, and again very appropriate for the era, literally everyone doing that with their phones. Which
no one interfering, everyone just films it for YouTube.
Which again,
which is what would happen. It's absolutely what would happen.
Very accurate, but also, as we know from other related things, also very important when you look at people like Floyd George.
Yeah.
Even going back a few years.
Is he not called George Floyd?
Yes, I always forget which way around the names are, to be honest.
I think it was George Floyd.
But also when you go back a few years to the LA race riots. And again, that was a result of a very lackluster, to be piss weak in terms of the description of it, response to a very similar act of police brutality that was again caught on, and obviously not as high quality, so it was very blurry, almost like CCTV footage. But again, that was cell phone footage.
Oh, was that? I know the guy's name. Was he Rodney something?
Rodney King.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rodney King being beaten up by the police.
Yeah.
And obviously, it ties in with things like, Childish Gambino, sort of Beano's lyrics for This Is America, where, he talks about, this is my celly, and, and it's all very much, if you're a black American, for a lot of people, that is basically your safety net. Or worst case scenario, it's the evidence for, what comes afterwards. But yeah, very of its time. But for me, the image, or kind of the sense he gave off was very much that, almost like caveman coming down off his adrenaline high of having just killed somebody. So not necessarily actually fully aware of the surroundings, but just still caught up in the moment.
Yeah, what I didn't get from it was any sense of, oh fuck.
Yeah, or remorse.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, which is kind of what you'd expect from, well, actually, I mean, I don't know. I say a normal person probably wouldn't have just clubbed someone to death with a fucking shield. But we've all made mistakes, not of that kind of ilk, I will hasten to add, but we've all done shit like crash the car or reverse into someone, and and I'm just giving like random. I'm not saying I've specifically done these things. I'm just saying you have that moment of like, fuck, when there's an accident, when the moment you realise something is wrong is what I'm trying to get at, badly. And you would think that just maybe if you'd just bludgeon someone with a chunk of vibranium to death, bludgeon, no, because it was his chest he was smashing, wasn't it? So it wasn't his head. Or was it his head? We couldn't. I don't know. Anyway, killed somebody, and you suddenly realised there was like a gang of, I don't know, 50 people, all filming you. streaming you live on Facebook or whatever.
Well, two of the Avengers were looking at you as well
and going, "Gah." Then you might think there would be that oh fuck moment, and he didn't appear to have it.
Yeah.
And I think for me that's very. That's it's written that way intentionally.
Yeah.
That's a.
Because I also,
point.
because I kind of mentioned it to you, I also think, again, because obviously I think a lot of this episode was very much about, once you get below kind of like the action level, it's very much about the semantics of like world politics. You had all the stuff around, the language of terrorism versus revolutionary.
Yeah.
You obviously, we've had sort of stuff around, sort of how different individuals are perceived, all of that sort of stuff. Obviously, we've had it in other episodes with Sam and his sister, and sort of a lot of what...
Oh, his sister was in it. Just remembered. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of what sort of Carlene is basically sort of pushing back against is kind of how sort of the perception of the world is now versus how it was during the blip, and all that sort of stuff. But I think I can't remember where I was going with this. Yes, that was it. But you'd kind of had almost a foreshadowing of the new Cat's fall from grace when you had like the little. Funny enough, it was actually going back to the whole conversation they were having about would you take this, the super soldier serum, and and obviously he's doing the whole I got these three awards for bravery he got that we saw in the second episode, for basically stuff he did in Afghanistan, and obviously it becomes very clear from that conversation that probably what he did would be looked at dimly by members of Amnesty International, possibly the Geneva Convention, that type of thing. It's very obviously the brutality of war and what it does to people. So again, you kind of got this juxtaposition, which is that ultimately, for a very weird kind of way, Steve Rogers did actually eventually go through the brutality of war as well in terms of what he was fighting for, but it never actually kind of dented him in the same way. I think weirdly he had a similar kind of wake up call in the real world when he started getting involved with S.H.I.E.L.D. of all things in
the Civil War stuff.
Well, not even that, but even kind of what led to Civil War, where it's basically you don't just blindly follow orders. You do what's right, not what you're told to do, or that kind of very strong moral compass thing. So,
I think Dumbledore says it's choice between what's easy and what is right.
Yes. But I think it's very much another kind of like sort of
incoming cat
contrast that this show is setting up is very much that whole looking at how your experiences, especially like bad experiences, shape you and how you deal with them, and what different paths you can actually go down as a result. So I'll be very interested to see what happens in next week's episode after that cliffhanger.
Well, we shall see next week. And in the meantime, I'm just going to leave you with something I've just come up with in my head. Are you ready for this?
No.
Kali, 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 I'm begging of you, leave the Red Hand Gang.